The wind whispered through the darkened branches of the ancient trees, their skeletal limbs stretching out over the desolate highway like gnarled fingers of a malevolent giant. I gripped the steering wheel of my car, my knuckles turning white as I navigated the winding road that cut through the heart of the haunted forest. The moon, shrouded by ominous clouds, cast an eerie pallor over the landscape, making it seem as if I were driving through the very depths of hell itself. I had heard the stories, the whispered tales of this forsaken stretch of road. They say that the forest was cursed, that the trees were haunted by the spirits of the damned. They say that those who ventured here at night would be visited by horrors beyond imagination. I had scoffed at such tales, believing them to be nothing more than the superstitious ramblings of the locals. But now, as I stared into the inky abyss that surrounded me, doubt gnawed at the edges of my sanity. The headlights of my car cut through the darkness, revealing fleeting glimpses of the forest's sinister inhabitants. Shadowy figures darted across the road, their eyes gleaming with malevolence. I could hear their whispered voices, a cacophony of sinister laughter and mournful wails that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. My heart pounded in my chest as I continued to drive, my foot heavy on the accelerator. I wanted nothing more than to escape this nightmarish place, to put as much distance as possible between myself and the haunted forest. But the road seemed to stretch on endlessly, twisting and turning like a serpent, leading me deeper into the abyss. As I rounded a particularly sharp bend, my headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, my tires screeching in protest as I came to a shuddering stop. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the apparition before me. It was a woman, her long, ragged hair hanging in tangles around her face. She wore a torn and blood-stained white dress that billowed in the wind, and her eyes were empty voids of darkness. She raised a skeletal hand toward me, her bony fingers beckoning me closer. A chill ran down my spine as I contemplated what to do. Every instinct screamed at me to drive away, to leave this wretched creature behind. But something compelled me to stay. Against my better judgment, I rolled down the window. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a pitiful, ethereal moan. "Please help me." I could feel the weight of her sorrow pressing down on me, a suffocating force that threatened to consume my very soul. Without thinking, I opened the car door and stepped out onto the road. The woman took a step closer, her gaze fixed on me with a hunger that sent a shiver through my bones. And then, with a sudden burst of unnatural speed, she lunged at me, her cold fingers wrapping around my throat. I gasped for breath, my vision darkening as I struggled to break free from her grasp. Her face contorted into a grotesque mask of rage as she tightened her grip, her nails digging into my flesh. In a desperate frenzy, I managed to pull a small knife from my pocket and drove it into her side. She let out an otherworldly shriek and released her hold on me, stumbling backward. I fell to the ground, gasping for air as I watched her writhe in pain, her blood soaking into the earth. With every ounce of strength I had left, I scrambled back into my car and slammed the door shut. I turned the key in the ignition, and the engine roared to life. As I sped away from the scene, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the woman disappearing into the darkness, her wails of agony fading into the night. I didn't know what I had encountered on that forsaken highway, whether it was a vengeful spirit or some other unholy entity, but one thing was certain: I would never again venture into that haunted forest. The horrors I had witnessed were beyond any nightmare. As I drove away, the moon broke free from its cloudy prison, casting its pale light over the road ahead. I couldn't help but wonder if the forest had claimed me in some way. However, those thoughts of my soul being claimed were not far at all from being the truth. And in hindsight, no matter the distance I traveled away from that malevolent place, the damned would eventually find me. And they didn't take long. I was about 2 miles from exiting the forest road, which would have brought me into a clear moonlit countryside, when my car started to slow, as if something was choking the very fuel pipes leading to the car's engine. Regardless of the fact that I was putting pressure on the pedal, it's almost like the forest itself was tightening its grip over me, trying to slow me down and prevent me from leaving. I could almost feel its foreboding hunger trying its best to claim me. The car finally came to a gargling stop, as the hum of the engine taking its final breath. I begin hitting the steering wheel in panic and frustration, continuously turning the key trying to refire the ignition, as the car itself was my only salvation out of this nightmare. I then notice outside that the wind began to pick up and the trees around me started to creak and moan, swaying back and forth with their dead contorted branches frolicking, like they were gleefully performing some ritualistic dance. My blood runs cold as I'm captivated by the image of that demonic woman in my rear-view mirror. She's standing at the very edge of the darkness, in the middle of the road about 20 meters behind me. I quickly turn my gaze to look back, but she's gone. As the terror of my situation engulfs me, I quickly peer around for something to defend myself, anything I could get my hands on in the moment, but there's nothing. I quickly look outside to my left for a branch or a rock to quickly grab, although leaving the sanctuary of the car is almost out of the question, but I have no other choice. I unbuckle my seatbelt and quickly open the door, springing towards the first small branch I see, noticing that it's sharply pointed on one end. I'm satisfied enough and scurry back to the car. I lock the vehicle and I cautiously scan the darkness outside, attempting to spot that woman. No, that witch. My gaze is caught by two burning eyes ahead of the car. I can't see anything else around them as the figure is completely shrouded in the darkness. Not even the car's headlights work as I attempt to turn them on, my vessel to safety laying completely dead on the road. As I cower inside it, tense and shaking, the searing yellow eyes start to move, but they begin to move upwards, as if levitating, yet never breaking their gaze on me. Until they reach the canopy of the arching branches of the trees above, they eventually disappear. All of a sudden, I hear a low, guttural growl behind me, my body tensing immediately. My eyes widen as I come to the horrifying realization that something's in the car behind me. I slowly look to my right, whimpering as I realize that this is the end. As my shaking body turns to face the thing occupying the back seat, I go numb, and I gaze into the eyes of endless fury, as the witch sat there leaning forward, and I feel her demonic hunger and desire to consume my very being overwhelm me. I sat there unable to move, petrified at what I was experiencing. Her body started to unnaturally twitch, convulsively animating and croaking. Then, all of a sudden, darkness, and a lasting shriek of terror leaves me, echoing through the surrounding woods, the only remnant of myself that would survive, as my body lay in the car, violently consumed by the forest's demonic host. This forest is its realm, and all who come venturing are soon to realize, because most that come venturing never return.